My son-in-law stood in my living room and told me my husband never wrote a final letter. For 11 months, I believed him. Then my dog found something in a flooded ditch that proved he had lied to my face. And what I discovered next nearly cost me my home, my savings, and possibly my life. My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 68 years old. And this is the story of how my husband's final message exposed a betrayal hiding inside my own family. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from and subscribe for more real-life inspired stories. Now let's get into it. My husband Daniel died on a cold October morning. No warning, no long illness, just a sudden heart attack while drinking coffee at our kitchen table. One moment he was smiling at me, the next moment he was gone. 44 years of marriage ended in less than a minute. The silence afterward was unbearable. Every room reminded me of him. His reading glasses sat beside his chair. His favorite coffee mug remained on the counter. I couldn't bring myself to move anything. 3 days after the funeral, my daughter Emily and her husband Jason offered to move in temporarily. "You shouldn't be alone right now," Emily said. At the time, it sounded like kindness. I desperately needed support. So I said yes. The first few weeks seemed normal. Jason fixed things around the house, handled errands, paid bills online when I felt overwhelmed. Everyone praised him. "You're lucky to have such a caring son-in-law." I thought so too. Until things started disappearing. First it was a folder containing property records. Then insurance documents vanished. A few weeks later, I couldn't find Daniel's financial files. Every time I asked about them, Jason had an answer ready. "You probably misplaced them. Grief affects memory. Don't worry about it." At first I believed him. Then I started noticing something else. Every time Daniel's estate came up in conversation, Jason would change the subject. Fast. Almost nervously. One afternoon I overheard him talking on the phone in the garage. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I was looking for gardening tools. Then I heard him laugh. "The house will be ours before Christmas." I froze. My blood turned cold. A few seconds later he added something even worse. "She doesn't suspect a thing." I quietly backed away before he could see me. That night I barely slept. The next morning I searched Daniel's office. That's when I found something strange. Several folders had been replaced. The labels were identical, but the paperwork inside wasn't. Original documents were missing. Copies had been inserted instead. Someone was changing records. Someone with access to the house. Someone I trusted. For months I stayed silent, watching, waiting, looking for proof. Then, nearly 11 months after Daniel died, a violent storm hit our town. The creek behind my property flooded. The next evening my old Labrador, Charlie, came running toward me carrying a muddy leather bag. At first I thought it was trash. Then I saw the initials. DC? Daniel Collins. My husband. My hands started shaking. Inside the bag were old documents, photographs, bank papers, and one sealed envelope. Across the front, written in Daniel's handwriting, were 6 words. "For Margaret, open if something feels wrong." At that moment, I realized 2 things. First, Daniel had written a final letter. And second, someone had worked very hard to make sure I never saw it. But what was inside that envelope was far worse than I ever imagined. And when I finally opened it, my entire world changed. The moment I opened Daniel's letter, I knew my husband had been afraid before he died. Not afraid of death. Afraid of someone living under my roof. My hands trembled as I unfolded the pages. Daniel's handwriting filled every line. The letter began simply, "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, then something isn't right." A chill ran through me. Daniel went on to explain that 6 months before his death, he had discovered unusual financial activity connected to one of our accounts. Money had been transferred without permission. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. He investigated quietly, and eventually he found the source. Jason. I stopped breathing. According to Daniel, Jason had been secretly borrowing money and covering his tracks. When confronted, Jason promised it would never happen again. For Emily's sake, Daniel agreed not to report him, but he never trusted him afterward. Then I reached the final page. That's where everything changed. Daniel revealed he had hidden evidence, bank records, signed statements, and a second will. A completely different will. One that had never been filed. One that specifically prevented anyone from gaining control of my assets while I was alive. At the bottom was a clue. A location only Daniel and I would understand. That same afternoon I drove to an old storage facility outside town. A place we rented decades ago. Inside Unit 214, hidden beneath an old wooden chest, I found a locked metal box. The key was taped underneath, exactly where Daniel said it would be. Inside were years of financial records, copies of transfers, forged signatures, emails, everything. Enough evidence to destroy Jason. But before I could leave, my phone rang. Emily. Her voice sounded terrified. "Mom, where are you?" I asked what was wrong. Then she whispered something that made my blood run cold. "Jason knows you found the letter." My heart nearly stopped. "How?" "He saw the envelope in your room this morning." I felt the color drain from my face. Then Emily said words I'll never forget. "Mom, he's looking for you." I turned toward the storage unit entrance, and standing outside beside a black pickup truck was Jason, watching, smiling. And suddenly I realized I wasn't safe anymore. When I saw Jason standing outside the storage facility, I knew one thing. My husband hadn't been preparing me for grief. He'd been preparing me for this moment. Jason walked toward me slowly, too calmly, too confidently. He knew exactly what was inside the metal box, and he wanted it back. What did you find? He asked. I forced myself to smile. Nothing important. He didn't believe me. Neither of us said another word, but I could feel the tension, the danger. The next morning I contacted an attorney and a retired investigator Daniel had trusted for years. Together we reviewed every document. The evidence was overwhelming. For years Jason had been creating fake accounts, moving money, and preparing forged paperwork that would eventually give him access to my property. But he made one mistake. Daniel documented everything. Every transaction. Every forged signature. Every lie. The investigator handed everything to authorities. Within weeks the case exploded. Jason wasn't just stealing from family. He was involved in multiple fraud schemes affecting several victims. The investigation grew larger than any of us expected. Then came the arrest. Federal agents arrived at our house before sunrise. Jason was taken away in handcuffs. Emily stood on the porch crying. Not because she was losing him, because she was finally free. Months later the trial ended. The evidence was undeniable. Jason accepted a plea deal and received a lengthy prison sentence. When it was finally over, Emily moved into her own apartment, started therapy, started smiling again. As for me, I stayed in the house Daniel and I built together. The house Jason thought he would steal. One evening I sat on the back porch watching the sunset. Charlie lay beside my chair, old, gray, happy. I looked at Daniel's final letter one more time. Then I noticed a handwritten note on the back, a note I had somehow missed. It said, Margaret, if you're reading this, then Charlie probably helped you find the truth. Give him an extra treat for me. I laughed. Then I cried. Because even after death, Daniel had found a way to protect me. And Charlie had found a way to bring his message home. Sometimes justice arrives through lawyers. Sometimes through evidence. And sometimes it arrives carrying a muddy leather bag in its mouth.